Hi, John Steingraber here, broker owner at Signature Realty NJ. In this educational video, we're going to talk to both sellers and buyers, and we're going to explain to you guys what it is that a buyer should do when they're doing their due diligence. And if you are a seller and you're watching this video, just keep in mind these are the things that you want to get ahead of if you have any issues with any of these. So it's not a bad idea to get a pre-inspection done. So let's get started. You're super excited. You got your offer accepted on a home. Now it's time to see if that home is in good condition, is structurally sound, and is not going to be an alligator, right? It's not going to cost you a ton of money over the next few years because there's major issues. And look, when emotions are high, intelligence sometimes goes down, and we decide to not do all these inspections. My recommendation as the broker owner of Signature Realty NJ is to take precaution. You are investing hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, sometimes even over $1 million, buying this property. We want to make sure that it's taken care of, it's in good condition, and if it does have some issues, that we get an estimate. We get an idea of what are these issues going to cost us. And that way you can weigh whether it makes financial sense to move forward, to ask for a credit, or to ask the seller to repair whatever the issues are. So the first one, you know it, it's the most common one of all, is the home inspection. You want to get a qualified home inspector, but you also want to get a home inspector that's not going to create problems where there aren't problems. Some home inspectors I've seen out there, they actually want to kill your deal. They want you to get scared. They want you to think that the house is not in good condition. So you want to get somebody that has amazing reviews, is also up on technology, meaning that they're going to walk through the house, they're going to take videos, they're going to take pictures, they're going to be able to insert arrows into the photos and things like that to really describe the issues that are wrong with the home and deliver the home inspection hopefully within latest 72 hours. I've seen home inspectors that take 2 weeks to deliver a report, either because they're busy, they're not efficient, they don't have a team, or they just really don't utilize technology. So that home inspector is really important. If you pay a couple $100 extra for a home inspector, but you get the right one, hey, that's just the cost of doing business. Again, you're buying an asset for a long time that's worth hundreds of thousands, if not over $1 million. So don't cheap out on doing these inspections. Number two, typically the home inspector will ask you, hey, do you want to do radon? Do you want to do termite? You can add that as a package. So yes, always say, yes, I want to do radon if your home has a basement, even if it's new construction. Just because it's new construction doesn't mean that it's not going to have radon. Get a radon test on these properties. If it's on a slab, you can ask them what they think, okay? Sewer inspection, super important. Oh, by the way, radon remediation typically takes about $1,850 plus the permit cost. So calculate around $2,000 to $2,250 for radon remediation if radon is high, and then you get it retested, okay? You want to do those things right away. It does take a while to get the testing back because it gets sent out to a lab, and if there is remediation, that could delay your closing. Right? So keep that in mind that you want to get these things done right away. As soon as you get out of attorney review, you're under contract, you want to get these inspections done ASAP. So start setting them up as soon as your offer gets accepted, even before getting out of attorney review, you can start calling the professionals to get them on the calendar. Good tip for you. Now, a sewer inspection, a sewer scope inspection is when a plumber, and I'll say that again, a licensed plumber, you really want to have a licensed plumber do this, not necessarily home inspectors that have it as an add-on. I know the home inspectors watching this are not going to be happy with me, but that's the truth. Sometimes they'll just do an add-on onto their home inspection services, and they really aren't a professional in that area, right? You really need to be an expert. So I recommend getting a plumber that focuses on also adding this along with other plumbing services to their list of services that they have. So hire a plumber to do a scope, and they put a camera through the sewer line to see if there's any cracks, if there's any problems, if it needs to be cleaned out. All those things are really important because they go out to the street, the sewer lines, and sometimes they can be very expensive. And be extra cautious if you live on a highway or on a county road or some big street with a double yellow line, because that's going to cost a lot more money if the sewer line goes into that street, because you're going to have to be shutting it down. Now you're going to have to pay for police officers to navigate traffic and all sorts of things. Plus, you might have to put a pretty big bond in escrow, okay? Very important stuff. And these are all the reasons why you should really hire a savvy real estate professional to guide you through these things, right? Because we can recommend all these professionals to you that know what they're doing. The next really important due diligence item is a survey. Now, banks typically will require that you actually get a survey for your property. A survey is where you hire a surveyor, right? They're typically an engineer, and they go out and they find the exact property lines. They do some due diligence and research based on previous deeds and things like that, and they look back into the records to see where the property lines end, how big the property is. This is vital, right? This is what you're buying. You're not just buying the house, you're buying the land that the house sits on, and you want to know where your property starts, where it ends. And if you ever want to pull a permit, you want to put a fence up, you want to do a pool, you want to, do an addition, all sorts of construction, the town engineer, right, in whatever city it is, whatever municipality, they will require a survey. So you want to have an updated survey when you buy a property. If you get an old survey, banks will accept up to a 10-year-old survey. I don't recommend that because something could have happened within those 10 years, right? It also includes things like well testing, right? And what I mean by that is, for example, if there's a factory close by that is dealing with hazardous materials, they are required to put in little testing wells around, their factory to see if they're contaminating people's water, for example. These are things that are really important to understand, because if there is these testing wells around your property, that means that you are very in close proximity to something that could be very hazardous. So all these things come up on the survey. Easements, shared driveways, encroachments. If you don't know what an easement is when somebody else has the right to use your property, right? Like a shared driveway. That's when you'll find out. It'll be on the easement. Okay, a lot of times it'll be recorded on the deed as well, but title search gets done a little bit later on in the process. So you want to get that survey done. And any encroachments. An encroachment is when somebody else has intruded onto your property. Maybe they put their fence on your property, right? Maybe they built their garage a little bit too big and now it's encroaching on your property. This is important to do before closing. That way you can have the seller address that, okay? You don't want to lose property. I can tell you horror stories about buyers that didn't do surveys. They come to us after and they go, oh, I bought this house for sale by owner and I had no idea that the backyard wasn't their backyard. It's city land. I said, wait, you didn't do a survey? No, we never did a survey, and this is when they're coming to us now to sell the property for them, and they didn't use us to buy it, and they never got a survey. So now they find out that their whole backyard is city land, and it's not even part of their property. You'd be so surprised. And not only that, there could be really positive things that come out in a survey, like your lot is bigger than you expected, and you might be able to subdivide the land and get, tremendous amount of value out of your land. That happens a lot too. So zoning and regulations and building codes and things like that, they change very often. So I wouldn't really use an old survey. So I know I spent a lot of time on that. And if you're getting value out of this, please hit the like button and subscribe so you can always get notifications of the videos that we get. Oprah, this is something almost nobody does. Really good real estate attorneys will do it for you, and good realtors will also do it for you. But nonetheless, this is one of the due diligence items. It's called an Oprah request, Open Public Records Act. We have the ability to search public records. And the way to do that is typically online. Check with your municipality, just call the building department, or Google Oprah request in Summit, New Jersey, for example, and you'll probably be able to fill out a form. What you want to do is put in the property address on the Open Public Records Act form. You want to put how that's going to be delivered to you via email, mail, etc. I recommend email. Put in your email there, and then write a description of what it is that you're looking for. And I would write in, I want to see all current or past history of permits, open and closed permits. This will give you a record of, hey, the roof was done in 2008. Now I know how old the roof is, right? Maybe the seller bought it in 2010 and he didn't know how old the roof was, right? And I'm buying the property from them and they have no idea on their seller's disclosure that they did that. And that's one of actually the due diligence items here. But the Open Public Records Act allows you to see if there's any open permits or violations. A lot of people will put in a water heater and they won't close out the permit, right? They'll open it and then they don't close it out. Or the town somehow never closed it out. They came out, they inspected it, and they just, I don't know, maybe the paper got lost. These things happen, and you want to make sure that you have all permits closed out and you make the seller do that, because you are not probably going to be able to obtain what's called your fire certificate or your certificate of occupancy, meaning you won't be able to move into the house if there's open permits. They do not allow typically transfer of title if there's open permits on the property, but you need to find that out ahead of time, early in the process, because God forbid that nobody searches that, then you close on the property and it has open permits, that's an issue, okay? It'll also show you violations. If you put in the description, you want to see if there's any violations on the property, right? One time, one of our clients were buying a property and the property was condemned, right? There was a violation there for lead-based paint. They condemned the home. Very important, okay? So that's a huge one that a lot of people miss, okay? Flood search. You want to make sure that the property is not in a flood zone, or if it is in a flood zone, you get a flood insurance quote and you see what the risks are, okay? Talk to us about that. We have a really good insurance provider that can help you get really great rates, better than most people. Even if the seller that you're buying the home from, if the house is in a flood zone, is $3,000, $4,000 a year, we could probably get you a flood insurance quote for less than $1,200, sometimes less than $1,000. So you can save a lot of money, but we could use it as leverage to buy the house for a great price. Keep in mind, just because it's in a flood zone does not mean that the property is going to flood. So sometimes it's not a bad idea to buy a house in a flood zone, because you can save $50,000, $75,000 compared to the house literally across the street that's not in a flood zone, and that one sells for $50,000 or $75,000 more. Something to think about, right? Over the term of your loan, a $50,000 increase in your loan balance could be $150,000. So you're saving a lot of money by doing that. But you want to do it safely. There's different levels of flood zones, and we also want to look at the history of the property. We want to ask the seller if they've ever put in an insurance claim on the property. Asking those types of questions, that's what a good realtor helps you do, right? Next is septic inspection. Man, I could do a video on each one of these. There's a lot of these, right? Huge due diligence checklist here. And yes, they cost money. It takes time, it takes effort. You're coordinating different professionals, but it's important. And they don't all apply for all properties, right? Like septic. Septic might not apply. If the property does have a septic inspections, there's two things that I want you to do. One, I want you to get the septic inspected. Two, I want you to call the health department in that municipality, and I want you to ask them how many bedrooms the septic system was designed for. Why? Because if the property is a 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath, and the septic system was designed for a 3-bedroom, but you want to do an addition and add 2 more bedrooms to the property, or go up and do an addition up and add a bedroom or 2, you will also have to upgrade the septic system. A lot of people don't really know that, okay? Very important to get your septic inspected. They range about $25,000 to $40,000 depending on how big the property is and what type of septic system you get. It also takes months and months to get the permits, to design the engineering on it, and it also depends on, that particular land, that particular property, where they're going to install the septic and things like that, because codes have been upgraded. You have to remember that, right? Where the septic is now, it might not be allowed to be replaced in that specific area. It might need to be set back a little bit differently. You have to really bring everything up to code. So that actually creates a lot of problems. So if the septic has issues, you want to really account for a significant amount of credit, or you can have the seller do it. Just make sure that they're doing it with a septic contractor that you're okay with, that has great reviews, they have insurance, and that way everything's good and dandy. The next one is tank sweep. This is environmental issues. Now we're talking about residential real estate. When we're going into commercial real estate, there's a lot more environmental issues we need to discuss. As far as residential, we only have to really do is, what we really have to do is a tank sweep. It's basically where an environmental contractor goes out to the property and basically sweeps the whole lot, right? Every inch of the lot with a metal detector, okay? We recommend an amazing tank sweep company. That's all they do, which is important because they don't do the remediation. So they don't have any incentive to find a tank or not find a tank. They're just there to do the job and see if there's any tanks on the property. There could be underground septic tanks, abandoned ones. There could be propane tanks. There could be other metal in the ground. There could be underground oil tanks. And the reason why these are all so important is because, for example, an oil tank could be a leaker, right? So there could be an abandoned, out of use oil tank from many, many years ago. But when you pull that tank out of the ground, if there's oil contamination in the ground, meaning it rusted and there's holes on the bottom or on the sides, that causes oil contamination in the soil. And the Environmental Protection Agency will require that to be remediated in a specific manner, which is very expensive. So your average oil tank remediation could be $12,000 to $15,000. But if it goes really into the ground and it was leaking for a long time and it hit groundwater, it could go into $100,000 or even more. It's a really, really risky thing to buy a property with an underground oil tank without doing a tank sweep. And if you find one, right, you do a tank sweep and you find one, you want to request that the seller remove the tank from the ground and take care of that issue. And I would recommend even being there for the removal to make sure that everything is being done properly. Make sure that they pulled a permit and request the permit that was pulled for that. Because, let's be honest, there's some people out there that are doing shady things. So you want to make sure that you're going to be buying this property, that there's no issues or contamination down the line that you end up finding out about, okay? So that's super important. Fireplace inspection. If the property has a fireplace, you hire a fireplace inspector. They're going to check the flue, they're going to check the structure, they're going to go up on the roof, they're going to take pictures, they're going to see if you have a chimney cap. That way you don't have water intrusion, that the flashing around the chimney is good. That's important, right? Because you don't want to have leakage around your chimney. And some houses are big and they have multiple fireplaces, so that can add up very, very quickly. It could be very, very expensive. Be careful with chimney contractors. Some of them really overcharge on what they're charging people. I've seen quotes for $100,000 to redo a chimney. Heck, if it's $100,000, you might as well get rid of the chimney, put in a gas fireplace, redo the siding on the outside, and it'll cost you less than half the price, and you'll have a beautiful new electric or gas fireplace, right? So keep in mind that, you want to get a couple opinions sometimes when it comes to doing the work on these properties, and we can help you with that. Test the well water. If it's private water and you have a well, you want to test that and make sure that it's potable and everything is clean. And obviously there's going to be other systems, water filtration systems and things like that you're going to want to make sure that they're inspected. They typically have the contractor who installed it right on there, and you can get their opinion as well, when it got installed, etc. These are all the things that you can also find out in the Oprah request on when they were installed. Verify zoning, right? If you're buying a two-family house, make sure that it's zoned two-family. Make sure that that's legal. Make sure that you're allowed to do renovations and that zoning is grandfathered in. There was a property that my wife and I were buying in Summit, New Jersey. It was a legal three-family, but it was non-conforming. The zoning officer explained to me, hey, it's a legal, non-conforming three-family. And he said, meaning you're allowed to have 3 units there, but it's non-conforming. We do not allow 3 units in that area anymore. So if you're going to do a gut renovation, you're going to have to convert it back to a 2-family. Right? So really we couldn't do any upgrades. House needed a lot of work, so we decided to pass on it. So things like that are really, really important to verify. If you're going to use the property for a specific use, maybe half an office, half your residential, your home, your primary residence, you want to make sure that to verify that the zoning allows for the specific use that you want it for. Maybe you're a veterinarian or a doctor or a dentist or an attorney, and you want to have your office there. Okay? Make sure that you verify zoning no matter what. Even if it's just single family, make sure that it's good. Measure square footage in the home. So my recommendation is measure the entire property, the square footage. Do not take the seller's word for it. Do not look at the estimated floor plans that come with listings a lot of times. A lot of times those are not done accurately. They're off. So you want to do this yourself or have somebody come in, measure the entire property, and then call the tax assessor and find out what the property tax card says, right? Ask them for the property tax card on that property. And basically, if the square footage is the same, you're good. But let's say your house is 2,000 square feet and the tax assessor only has 1,600 square feet. Where did this extra 400 square feet come from? That means that something was probably done without permits, because typically all that gets updated when, you know, either an attic is finished, a third floor is finished, or something like that. Or maybe they put on an addition and they did it without permits. These are all very, very important things to look at, okay? I know this is a longer video, guys, but, you know, we're talking about you spending hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars on property, and this education can really serve you ongoingly. Very, very important. Look, we get excited when you get your offer accepted, right? You're gonna get your home, you know, it's a win-win, right? We're gonna be able to make a commission. It's great, you know, but we also don't want you buying a property that's gonna, you know, cause you a lot of headaches, a lot of problems, and potentially put you in a really negative financial situation moving forward if you had to put out money for all these different things. So check that. Termite inspection. Talked about that. You can add it to the home inspector and make sure you get any quotes if there is any termite damage, not just get it remediated, meaning, you know, yeah, you can have a pest management come and treat it and have a contract every quarter that they come out, they spray, etc. But you also want to repair any damage, because that could be causing structural problems in the property, right? That's when you can get a structural engineer involved and get their opinion as well. It's about another few $100s to get a structural engineer to give you their opinion. And they'll tell you, right? They're not going to scare you. They're going to say, hey, you know, you got to put a couple sister joists here. You got to do this, you got to do that. Then you got to, you know, a carpenter or a master carpenter framer to give you a quote to do that stuff. Shouldn't be too crazy depending on the job, right? A couple $1,000 and it's done and you're good to go. Now you have a safe structure. You got rid of the termites. You remediated. Everything is good. Okay. You can also get a lead paint inspection. In New Jersey, we have any houses that were built before 1978 could potentially have lead-based paint. Not many people get this because many people have painted over, everything is good. And really you need to be concerned about your kids. If there's peeling paint and it's very old, it could potentially have lead-based paint. You don't want them ever grabbing that paint and putting it in their mouth. I have a 10-month-old daughter and she puts everything in her mouth, you know, everything that she grabs, every toy. So if there was paint chipping around and she put that in her mouth, it could potentially give them brain damage. And there's cases of that. That's why we have the lead-based paint disclosure form and why it's so important. There's a lead-based paint pamphlet as well that you can download off the internet and your realtor should have given you, or you can request it via email. Read the seller's disclosure. If there is no seller's disclosure, then you have to take extra precaution, obviously, with all your inspections. But your seller's disclosure is basically a document that sellers fill out, you know, before even putting the house on the market, disclosing any problems or previous problems that they had. Water in the basement, you know, things like that, insurance claims, that should all be on the seller's disclosure. So ask your realtor to ask the listing agent for the seller's disclosure. And lastly, obviously there could be a million other things that, you know, the property has. It could have a pool, and then you have to get a pool inspection. It could have a jacuzzi, things like that. So you might need additional inspections, but these are the core things that you need. I already mentioned structural engineer. And look, if you're getting value out of this, we want to share it with more people. We think these items are really important. You know, real estate agents go through a 75-hour course. They pass an exam and then voila, they're licensed to sell properties, right? So not everybody has all this information out there. At Signature Realty, we spend a ton of time training our real estate agents to do things the right way and going above and beyond. But this is really good information for any buyer and any seller that's planning on selling their house to take care of these items and really do some of the due diligence ahead of time. We also talk to our sellers about that when we list the properties, that they could get ahead of some of these things, right? And we have a whole program for that called our Construction Concierge Program. So if you're liking this information, this content, and you're getting value out of it, like it so you're telling YouTube and Facebook and Instagram, our social media platforms, that this is good information. Comment, right? Tell us what you think. And if you're on YouTube, subscribe and hit the notification bell so you can be notified of upcoming videos. See you on the next one.